Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, and the Twitch stream apparently having a couple of issues right now here. We'll try to do the whole digital percussive maintenance on the background there, but that's why we have all the places that we are in case something doesn't work, something ends up not being as viable, or you can't get access it. Hey, we're in all those other places, as again, the social media, the on-air signal, phone lines a little bit later in the show, as we usually do. There's a lot of ways to get at us, a lot of ways to interact with the show, because sure, there's talking going on here. And for those that have been in the comments saying, I don't like the host here, okay, you know what? You don't have to agree with me. You certainly don't. If I was enforcing that, I would have lost my mind a long time ago. But if you're unclear on the concept about the fact that I am the host of the show here, and sure, we definitely talk about things, but if you're saying there's still that one guy who messaged me, I think it was on Instagram, saying you talk too much. My dude, this is a talk radio show. There's going to be talking. So we got a lot to talk about today, specifically including, we'll probably all get into the whole Alec Baldwin situation here in a bit, but other more substantive things also happening and affecting us here in this region. Interesting priorities coming out, both of some of the inauguration of the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, and the lieutenant governor, also putting out some interesting statements of what will be going on with this legislative session. We've had some previews, some major lists going on, but kind of boiling down to four, the way the governor has put it here, of what's particularly all the gas in the tank when it comes to funding will be going towards, and what that could affect. Things here in the borderland, also the state as a whole here, as we do. Okay, it should be up on Twitch there now for those wanting to go over to that location. But as we also have Ida Beza Gardner, hello to you as well. Hi, and hello to Eric von Holstein-Rathlow as well. Ed Clore asking, wonder if Baldwin will do time for quote-unquote involuntary manslaughter. Got some analysis we'll get into a bit here, but I'm sure a lot of people want to comment on that, so we'll get to that a little bit later in the show, right before we open up the phone lines here. But again, when it comes to Texas and the legislative state priorities, just with another approximately $50 billion left to go here, that leaves a lot of room beyond even the budget that has been put forth already to put into those priorities, and maybe to set up more kerfuffles going on within the state house. So we'll definitely be talking about that. But then also, as we also have James Holmes over on there, peace to you as well, my dude. Some of the other things going on, of course, here, kind of a case in point when it comes to border security and immigration issues here, with a notable apprehension happening at right in our region of the border. Not technically El Paso, Santa Teresa, but it's the El Paso sector, so I'm still going to call it El Paso. John Browson saying he'll do his time on the beach there. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm sure that a lot of people want to add their 2 cents on that. So yeah, hot button topics. We're not totally ignorant of them, and it's right in our backyard too. So certainly relevant to the way we talk about the things that, again, going on here in the larger borderland area. But again, so border security and immigration are focused in a different way, and how, physical security is certainly a component of it, but also what can be done on the back end and the regulations and all those kind of things. And then also, kind of related to the Baldwin situation, also what is coming out of the New Mexico State House, the notable things from the State of the State address, and what the Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is saying there. So a lot of different points to be made. There's also Louis Panado chiming in over there on the social media. So a lot of ways to get into it and get on to these subjects that we are going through today. So I want to start out here because I've been talking about it for a minute, even if we've had a lot of other things going on this week here. Definitely one we went to intended to tackle earlier in this week, as of course the inauguration for Governor Greg Abbott happening in front of the Texas State House, the Texas Capitol with an O representing the building, of course, a little bit earlier this week, actually on the 17th, so the Tuesday, but we had a lot of intervening news going on in the meantime. Which, of course, he, thanked Texans for the support and trust, and getting into his third now session as a Texas governor, and also saying he's grateful for Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, House Speaker Dade Phelan, and, thanking family members and members of the military. beyond the pomp and circumstance, some of the actual specifics he was getting into. Juan's also chiming in over from the YouTube. Appreciate that. And more commentary going on there as well. Always check out the comments if you can, if you're able to do safely, but I'll bring up some more of the more relevant and what I think is important ones anyway. That's just my very subjective judgment here, what I feel contributes most to the conversation, such as Marky Mendigo. Good afternoon all to you as well. So 4 major things that Governor Greg Abbott, I mean, the speech and the whole ceremony, looking over the entire stream of it, was approximately 2 hours. So there's, I mean, not all of it was necessarily that substantive as much as ceremony and reinaugurations are and can be. The real meat of it kind of came down to 4 major points being reported on pretty widely across the state, and certainly worth mentioning here. Pretty much one of the biggest ones that Governor Greg Abbott has continued to talk about ever since is absolutely tax cuts, or property tax cuts specifically. Now, it's worth noting that there were 2 different property tax modifications made in the, most recent constitutional election. That one that there was, I don't even think I remember the turnout rates on that, because I can't afford that much depression medication, but it wasn't spectacular. Not that it ever particularly is, but I mean, there were the 2 of them there. One that kind of freezing property taxes for elderly or those with disabilities, specific some of the exemptions, and also increasing the homestead exemption. So those have been part of it, but actually budget-wise, the part of what is being talked about there. And I mean, the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts has put out the numerous, dozens of billions of budget surpluses, and with the amount that has actually now been put forth, as we kind of mentioned throughout the previous parts of the week, that there's about $50 billion left on the table past the initial budgetary amounts. So given that we still got like legislation and other things to go, there is still a lot of gas in that tank to go a lot further, or just again setting up those further fights as we get into it. Because you might be asking the question there, okay, how do we end up kind of going about property tax relief here in Texas, particularly since like a lot of those assessments, rate settings, etc., end up coming from the local level? Well, as we often say, that the amount that is the kind of the biggest chunk of the pie, just percentage wise, and therefore real dollars, is when it comes to education. The different districts that you live in. We got, of course, the notable ones here in town, Big 3 and beyond. So those, of course, are the major funding sources for the individual districts, the properties that exist in their area. Kind of a case in point that can be made through that is the changes that have been going on in the Cañutillo Independent School District. You look at some of their older facilities and then say kind of compare them with the newer ones, the Sylvester Reyes Elementary, which if you keep going along, Red Road, you eventually run into, and it kind of trickles back then and comes into I-10. But like you can compare and contrast that with, like, say, Cañutillo High School, their big original high school, and markedly different in construction materials. I'm not going to say necessarily quality of the institution, because it's the things that inhabit it, but the buildings are noticeably different. And some of the newer construction going on there has been, a major part of it, because there's been, as El Paso has continued to grow, again, that Northwest phrase that I'm still getting used to, there's been a lot more money injected in there. So the question then comes about what can the state do? And it's about doing possibly more funding for education and different parts of the going on to education, or the amounts. I mean, there's been phrases used previously like unfunded mandates or requirements. And so that kind of then dovetails into another major point being made by the governor on education in general. I mean, really, he came about it in 2 different ways. I'm going to say school safety and curriculum is kind of one of the ways it's being cliff noted out here. And I mean, we got a lot that goes into that as well, even beyond the funding of it. Of course, I mean, some of the things that are on the mind and continue to be discussed, and I mean, even some presentations going on within the Texas State House, including those families from Uvalde and all. I mean, we've done more than a little bit of discussion even here on our own and on local institutions on what they're doing in the aftermath of that. But the way the governor coming at it about, again, school safety and curriculum. So he said, quote, "We will not end this session without making our schools safer," but then also wanted to talk more about, as we also have Ion Grimm and Austin Redfern over there chiming in. Appreciate that. We are talking about, what he said is that beyond the making schools safer, that also we must remember this: our schools are for education, not indoctrination. Schools should not push social agendas. They must focus on fundamentals. So I think that potentially funding will be a focus of this, bills coming through this legislative session. But given those statements and more, and there have been similar echoings coming from, say, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, which again notably does serve as the head of the Texas Senate, I would be wondering. I mean, there's things that are percolating through. There's been some, let's just call it roughly thousands of bills filed, if not several hundred more than. The bill numbers immediately pretty much get into like the 2000s or even more here. So trying to find a specific one is a little bit way too inside baseball right now. Let's just put it that way. But once we get further into what we see coming up at the session, I'm thinking with some of these calls and parts of it, I wouldn't be surprised if, yes, there may be more funding that come along with it, but also potentially more standards that are tied with it along the lines of, okay, what is being taught, curriculum review, potentially parental involvement. There's a lot of possibilities given just what has been brought up previously with that as interesting point being made by Tritosak, if I'm saying that right, over on the YouTube, saying the property tax system makes the flawed assumption that if a home value increases, that the owner of that home must have had more income and more money in their bank account. Yeah, that's certainly a problem that we've been seeing in this area. What's the number? I want like 15 to 17% over the last, maybe an average the last few years. I'll need to look that back up here. But yeah, we've been seeing double-digit increases in consecutive years, just in our local area for a while now. Sure, there are other areas like Austin, which, housing was never particularly affordable in any kind of real sense of the word there, at least not in my lifetime or major parts of it. And now it's just gotten out of hand. Like, I think there was almost like 50% in some places. So, yeah, it's a problem. And Trader Sec goes on to talk more about the whole essentially being taxed on unrealized gains that they do not have access to until they sell their homes. There are issues with it. So that's why the potential for the changes coming to, again, the property tax assessment, or money coming into the districts, therefore then potentially having to assess less. Yeah, there's a whole lot. These are just some of the major things that are going into this legislative session. One less affecting here in the borderland anyway is going to be a lot of focus on probably the power grid for the rest of Texas. Again, notably El Paso is not on the Texas grid. Basically, it starts more or less. It's kind of hard to pin this down exactly, but most of the utility and coverage maps I've seen put it basically once you get past Van Horn coming from the El Paso area, that's where you start getting into the grid of Texas kind of areas. So yeah, it's not so much impacting here, but expect more than a little bit to be talked about that during this actual, again, ongoing legislative session. So that's kind of a broad overview, but of course there's even more going on in our area. Another thing that he has of course brought up has been border security and immigration, and particularly the state level efforts. Operation Lone Star, again, notably present in our area now. And as much of the discussion we've been having about what needs to be in place, how it should be handled, how to make sure that El Paso can continue to do business in the midst of it, all these kind of swirling priorities. And Treaters Echo, welcome to appreciate the comment there as well. But let's just say that when it comes to the actual physical security part of it, which goes into all of the, what goes into border security, kind of a case in point coming out today. We'll talk a little bit more about that after this first break of the hour. And more comments. We'll keep delving into the comments, mentioning more of those. So stay tuned. Got to take that first break of this hour right now and get back on track a little bit. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. You are, of course, tuned into News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Back after this break with more comments still going on online, phone calls a little bit later as we usually do. But in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Zero crashes on your El Paso freeways right now. Multiple vehicles blocking the right shoulder in the lower valley. Northbound on the loop at Rojas. An accident with police on the scene. Northbound Hawkins at Montana, slowing traffic in all directions. Try Edgemere or McRae as your alternates there. Slow traffic on eastbound Montana, Trowbridge out to Zaragoza, 15-minute delays. And on North Mesa from the downtown exits to Red, it's a 5-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Winning $1,000 incites all kinds of emotions.
Are you kidding? No way.
What to do with it is up to you.
We're going to Key West, that's it. What are you, nuts? We're going to Atlantic City.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Enter the nationwide keyword at ktsmradio.com for your chance to win. Brought to you by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, where buying a car is fun.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I sell custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters that are easy to install at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are custom-made for your windows, and I guarantee they'll fit. Don't hire a pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt?
I owe the IRS $37,000.
Get ready for a toll-free hotline. Take advantage of new IRS tax forgiveness programs that may protect you from IRS collection agencies. They have the power to garnish your wages, put liens on your property, and levy your bank account. Civic Tax Relief can help protect you from the IRS.
Civic Tax Relief basically represented me against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, I didn't owe the IRS anything.
Find out about the Fresh Start program that is now available through Civic Tax Relief. Civic Tax Relief's special tax hotline can help you discover all the relief programs available for free.
I would recommend anyone who has a tax problem to contact Civic Tax Relief.
Just call 800-583-9917. 800-583-9917. Don't wait. Call now. 800-583-9917. 800-583-9917.
Hey Texas, did you know that individuals living with serious mental illness are more susceptible to severe COVID-19? Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov for vaccination resources to help reduce the risk and keep yourself and your fellow Texans informed and protected this holiday season. Stay healthy, Texas.
Make a New Year's resolution that's easy to keep. Help protect your identity and finances with LifeLock Identity Theft Protection. LifeLock detects identity threats you may miss on your own. And if you become a victim, LifeLock will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. Join now and save up to 25% off your first year. Go to LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over our YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Of course, a lot of stuff we're talking about here today, and inclusive courting, we'll be talking about through May and probably beyond. I'm just kind of calling that shot now. Not positive there's going to be special sessions after this. That kind of won't be clear if there's like any of the holdups. That's essentially why there was last time that the Texas legislature convened. They had those extra ones is because, well, the governor, lieutenant governor, leadership, etc., were not pleased with the lack of progress on some very specific issues that were on their list. So, more of that coming here. Ion Grimm talking about that, saying Dade Phelan, Texas House Speaker, appears to be a rhino, Republican in name only, become an acronym there, appoints Democrats as committee chairs and keeps the discussion of certain school issues from the floor. I mean, okay, so I've had limited conversation with Phelan in the past and previous leadership here. It has been a feature of, Texas legislature in general, particularly the House, of having leadership kind of divvied up here. Again, just stark distinction to be brought between that and the national legislature, in which the party in power controls all of the leadership seats. Sure, there have to be appointments to committees here, but a little bit different there, of course. Here also has Richard Janicek chiming in, usually listening on AM. I mean, do whatever works for you here. We certainly don't require anyone to listen in only specific ways, but do appreciate the interaction if you are willing and, again, can safely do so. Phone calls a little bit later as we do here. But I will say that, again, back to the whole Texas House of Representatives, leadership in general, of course, we've got, the lieutenant governor and the speaker of the House as leadership of their respective chambers, the Senate and the House, obviously. And just because there's party unity or party leadership in name in both of it doesn't mean that there's always agreement. That was pretty well clear also during the last legislative session, and how was a whole variety of issues, so I can't really pinpoint one off the top of my head right now, but basically there was kind of coming down some ultimatums coming from, well, Patrick at that point in time saying, no, you're going to pass these things, and well, you basically got to take what we give you. And the House kind of saying, I mean, both leadership, Phelan at the time, and then also other just, committee heads, other things within the House saying, yeah, no, we're not going to do that, because if you're not actually going to, you're not going to dictate to us, basically. So there are personalities at play is a part of the way to say it, but then there's also, well, different priorities, just different way things work here, whether you like or not how it works in the actual House. I will say this, John Browson also saying the only way a rhino can become speaker is to have Democrats vote them in. The conservatives won't vote for a rhino. I will say that Phelan did get all but 3 votes, if I'm remembering correctly, when it came to this, the start of this session. But also, the Democrats weren't exactly a swaying factor there as well. I mean, they've got, I think of it as roughly a third. I don't have the actual immediate numbers in front of me here, but yeah, it's not necessarily a deciding factor as much as, I mean, not even anywhere near the close kind of margins that we see actually coming from, say, the National House of Representatives here. But want to get into another part of it because, of course, something that Governor Greg Abbott has been talking about with his priorities is continuing to essentially focus on and, well, really enforce the border security efforts that the state has been working on. So kind of a case in point that has come up within the, well, actually being brought out today here, according to releases from, U.S. CBP and specifically ICE on this one, saying that person that was actually apprehended in our area found after climbing over the fence in Santa Teresa, near the Santa Teresa port of entry, as it's being described as here. Alejandro Tenescalo Mejia, 41, of Guerrero, Mexico, was connected and a fugitive from the 24 disappearance and abduction of 43 Mexican college students in southern Mexico, and he was turned over to Mexican authorities, according to our news partners over at KFOX 14. So as much as there is conversation about how processing happens, how we're actually able to do those kind of things. And again, with Operation Lone Star now present in our area, at least in part, ever since there were the disaster declarations that were passed based on the situation that we're still kind of in, or at least the limbo that remains after, or what will be going on with Title 42. Feel it relevant to mention some of the numbers that are a part of that here. We have seen a pretty precipitous, I mean, it almost looks like an exponential curve in reverse with the numbers about kind of the high water mark in the second to last week of the year, or it's technically the 50th week of the year. But that's how they have it listed there over on the El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis, the high water mark of about 10,000 migrant releases in the community during that calendar week. It was about half that in the following week, and then not quite half again of that number, about 3,500. And then in the intervening weeks, we've seen about 1,700. And in the most recent week, it was approximately 152, or rather 1,065, with approximately 152 daily total releases. And then so far this week, about 682. So we're still seeing, there's an amount of pressure. And I think that will continue to be a factor until we get through, again, whatever the Supreme Court oral arguments are going to come out with, those being expected in February at this point. But other laws, other things could come into place before that point, though I'm not going to totally hold my breath on the laws part of it here. But the whole idea about border security, and why I keep saying that there's really no reason that there shouldn't be physical security. And by saying physical security, I'm not necessarily saying that solely wall building, because obviously this guy, as has been reported, climbed over a section of wall. So that's why, I guess, in the whole conversation, why I kind of dislike to say, build the wall talk, because sure, it's pervasive. It's simple. It's appealing in that way if you just want to say, I'll just do one thing and deal with it. But it's nowhere near a comprehensive solution, because you still have to have people on that wall, still need to know where people are coming across. Otherwise, now you've just built somewhat of a barrier that may deter some, but it's not exactly an absolute. If you really want to go back and talk about walls in history, I mean, the Great Wall of China ends up being mentioned more than makes sense in this conversation. But it's notable that, of course, the Mongols in that situation came through an unguarded gate. So you still have to have people, and so that's why the focus on bringing more agents on board has been kind of perennial one across administrations. because having the simple, manpower and able to actually do the enforcement, because you can have all the physical barriers you want at a certain point. I mean, there's been different versions, including steel slats that's been referred to elsewhere, or even just a little bit further towards the Arizona area. We've had essentially just like horizontal bars, approximately a foot or two above the ground, where with intervening vertical bars in order to support it, with the idea of basically just stopping vehicular traffic. And so you can't just drive right across it, can still step over it or crawl under it, whatever you prefer at that point, but making it so that it's not as accessible, except for the fact that when places where those weren't actually monitored, they would just kind of build up dirt ramps over it. So you still, people, the actual, again, the enforcement part of it is more or less the most important point, because, I mean, anyone saying that anywhere even near a majority of people coming across are of ill intention just falls flat in my mind in the data I'm looking at. But the fact of the matter is, given the amount that we are seeing and kind of the flow, the way it has always been in our region, without being able to kind of interdict and further verify, it kind of sets up these situations. Very happy in this case that this individual was handed over to Mexican authorities, was removed, or pending removal, at least as of last report there. Because, I mean, seriously bad dude in this case here. I mean, the stories that came out, I remember at that point in time, happening again in 2014, so was doing some other kind of reporting at that point in time, it was some of the things and the disappearances that came along with it, some of the stories were horrific. So very happy this dude got caught, but without having more of that, I mean, from where we can see, if I had a window I could see into, but if I step otherwise on the property, I can see the whole We Build the Wall section of wall that was done by the private efforts that have had some more legal issues going on with it. Kind of a complex story there on its own. But that letting that be the only focus here on physical barriers. I mean, there was, of course, we even had the pictures up of, the concertina wire and even the connexes that were being put up in like some of the gaps in the actual physical barriers in our area. And that may have its place in certain areas, but the fact of the matter is that more support, more funding, and more personnel involved with it has to be the major solutions I'm looking at here in order to make sure that people like this, so wanting to just kind of sneak across, are able to be interdicted and know who is actually coming in to our country here. Anyway, let's go ahead and take that next break right now and talk a lot more about these further issues, including, we'll get into the whole Baldwin thing here a bit, because, I mean, it is in our backyard, and, well, I got some thoughts. So let's talk more about that. Taking this next break right now. You're, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Phone lines in a minute, as we usually do. I'll announce that end of the coming segment, but otherwise more comments coming in, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 news update. The fugitive connected to the 2014 disappearance and abduction of 43 Mexican college students was arrested at a local port of entry. Alejandro Tescanero Mejia of Guerrero, Mexico, was captured on December 14th, climbing over the border barrier near the Santa Teresa port of entry. Immigration officials arrested the 41-year-old and turned him over to ICE. He remained detained at the El Paso Processing Center until his removal yesterday. In 2014, 43 students from a rural teaching college in Guerrero, Mexico, went missing when traveling by bus. Tescanero Mejia was one of several individuals wanted in connection to the case. Actor and producer Alec Baldwin, who fatally shot a cinematographer on the set of the movie Rust in New Mexico, will be charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. That was the decision today by prosecutors in Santa Fe. They said that the weapons specialist on the movie set, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who supervised the weapons, will also face the same charges. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
54 southbound slowing down between McCombs and Trans Mountain with 19-minute delays. Eastbound Montana slow from Trowbridge out to Zaragoza. 15-minute delays there. Accident with police on the scene and northbound Hawkins at Montana Avenue. And the left lane is closed on eastbound Americas Avenue from Alameda Avenue to North Loop Drive, slowing traffic. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. It will be a cold one again for tonight and for your Friday morning. A little gustier for tomorrow as well. West winds 25 to to 35 miles per hour, high around 60 on Friday. Then the numbers go cooler to colder again for the weekend. Highs lower 50s on our Saturday, down into the upper 20s for your Sunday morning, with mid 50s Sunday afternoon. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Discover. We could talk about how complicated other banks make it to redeem credit card rewards. Or we could talk about how with Discover, you can redeem your rewards for cash in any amount at any time. Talk about amazing. Learn more at discover.com/redeem rewards. Terms apply.
Big tech is a real danger. They're supposed to be neutral. But now a new book by Congressman Ken Buck blows the lid off their censorship. It's called Crushed: Big Tech's War on Free Speech. In Crushed, Congressman Buck shows how Google, Facebook, and Twitter suppressed the truth about Hunter's laptop, COVID, President Trump, and more. Crushed shows how Google uses its monopoly to hurt consumers and silence conservatives. Big tech controls the information flow, but they ignore your right to free speech. If you're tired of their bias, fight back. First, get Ken Buck's Crushed. Then, all this week, watch Rob Schmidt's show on Newsmax. Every night, Rob talks to Ken Buck about Crushed and its revelations. You'll find out how Google uses search, ad networks, Gmail, and even YouTube TV to censor conservatives. It's shocking. Get Ken Buck's Crushed today and watch Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax. Remember, Newsmax is real news for real people.
Cash Blitz scratch tickets from the Texas Lottery are here. Play for a shot at top prizes from $5,000 to $1 million. Plus, enter to win a VIP iHeart trip and more at TexasLottery.com.
Is it getting harder to find new customers? As the #1 audio company in America, we can help you grow your business at a fraction of the cost. Get started today by visiting iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
This report is sponsored by iHeartAdvertising.com.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Yes, we are up on all of them after that weird little hiccup at the start of the show here. At Twitch sometimes is twitchy. Anyway, if you want to comment on some of these things here, you can certainly do that, as we have a lot of people tuning in, chiming in, adding those likes and reacts. We do appreciate, including Ion Graham, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Ed Clore, Jerry Hart, Ida Beza Gardner, and more chiming in, including, of course, those over on the YouTube, which it sure doesn't reflect that. But if you're commenting over there, like Juan's, Trito Sack, RJ as well, including RJ, a comment meant to get with you that saying Austin went Frisco in more ways than one. Yeah, I didn't know someone who had a house there forever that they then saw an insane appreciation in price. They bought one that was decently expensive. They were coming from where are they technically, kind of DC suburbs, Virginia area. So decent sized house, decent property, sold it, kind of upgraded a bit, got a little bit more bang for their buck in Austin as they relocated part of their business interests out there. But then even over that time, within the last couple of decades, I don't have exact dates on theirs, they saw an insane appreciation. So the possibility of those potentially going and changing in the property tax calculations, I'm not sure how much relief it would be to places like Austin, but would probably be appreciable around here, since, public education, the school districts are pretty much uniformly the biggest chunk of the pie wherever you're living in the region and whatever your taxing entity situation is. Anyway, getting back to one of the points here, as was, of course, brought up during the news break and the update from our news partners there at KFOX 14. Yes, announced today that Alec Baldwin is facing charges in relation to the shooting on the set of Rust being filmed. Okay, I'm just going to call it within our broadcast area in New Mexico, more or less anyway. So that, I mean, some of the details coming out of that are interesting. We've talked about it a couple times before. I got to say that I'm not surprised that he is facing these accounts of, again, involuntary manslaughter, that being decided upon by the attorneys in the district attorneys in the First Judicial District of New Mexico. Saying, quote, after a thorough review of the evidence and the laws of the state of New Mexico, I've determined that there is sufficient evidence to file criminal charges against Alec Baldwin and other members of the Rust crew. Being said again, that New Mexico First Judicial District Attorney Mary Carmack Altwee, saying, on my watch, no one is above the law and everyone deserves justice. Of course, this happened October 21st, 2021, and most notably took the life of cinematographer Helena Hutchins and injured the director, Joel Souza. Now, there are a lot of kind of, armchair quarterbacking analysis coming out on this, but I got to say, just in my analysis of it, that probably the dumbest thing that Baldwin could have done in the aftermath of it was almost making any public statement, because I can see at least part of that going directly to the way the laws are set in New Mexico, because not only is it going to be that the guilt or requirements of it on that charge of, again, involuntary manslaughter will be decided, but also the kind of the severity of it. The district attorney noting that that the jury would not decide simply if Baldwin and also Gutierrez Reed, the armorer on the set, also being charged in conjunction with this, not only going to be deciding if they're guilty, but, quote, under which definition of involuntary manslaughter they were guilty. As noted by our news partners over at KFOX 14, under New Mexico law, involuntary manslaughter is a fourth-degree felony and punishable by up to 18 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. The charges include the misdemeanor charge of negligent use of a firearm, which will probably be put together with the main charges there. So what I got to say is one statement particularly sticks out in my mind for what Baldwin had said. And again, there are some like comedy sketches out there of being insert famous persons here, publicists, and I gotta imagine if anyone hasn't done that already, this would be a ripe one, because some of those statements he was making about the use of the firearm, saying I never pulled the trigger, that got reported on pretty widely in the part of it. But the thing that he said that stuck with me, so he was using, this was a old West style movie. There were a lot of both replica and some antique firearms, to my understanding that this was an antique revolver. And the way that he phrased it, I'm not going to be quoting directly, but the sense that I got from him was that he said, I didn't pull the trigger, I just lowered the hammer. Now, anyone who has studied firearms or has gotten one here knows that, the whole idea of dropping a gun and being able to go off is a bad thing. At the very least for manufacturers, that's a, bad design lawsuit city. So they're not really a feature of modern ones. But in historic ones, there's, anecdotal stories going around of, cowboys that kept the 6-iron on their hip, keeping an empty chamber so they wouldn't have the hammer resting on the round. Because in modern firearms, there's a bar or some kind of device that essentially makes it, if it's in a safe mode or not intending to be fired, that there is a separation. So you can't just drop the thing and have it go off. But in historic firearms, and again, so don't know, haven't seen the exact, of course, model that he was using here, but in that era, it would be that, by just dropping the hammer, if you did it, say, not slowly enough, you could be impacting the primer and then, unfortunately, setting it off here. So that's kind of my supposition about what's going on there. I'm sure a lot more people will have input on this, including of what the potential charges are. RJ saying, saying a single action hammer falls and around with enough force to set it off. It's possible, particularly if you thought I'll just release it and then just let it fall forward. That could be enough. There are, again, whole drop safe tests, and just, again, to juxtapose it with any modern things, there have been certain manufacturers of, semi-automatic handguns that if they were not drop safe, they did massive recalls on this because it's not how people actually want it to work there. Anyway, those are some of the things going on here, and why I think that this will be okay. If you don't know what you're talking about, you can just say this. I usually don't pay attention to the trolls here, and if they get too egregious, I block them here. But Eric McNabb saying, literally, guns do shoot by themselves. This is a fact. Sure, buddy. If you've got something that just randomly goes off, you don't have a gun. You have a booby trap that you're not in control of. Like, literally, just saying, they just go off. It just went off. Tell me you don't know anything about firearms and firearm safety without telling me you don't know anything about firearms or firearms safety here. So, They just go off. I mean, if you've got like a defective product here, yeah, get that dealt with. But if you're just saying, oh, it just went off and that's why I shot the dog, honey, no, that's you. Good luck with that argument here. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take that next break and get to some of the phone calls on the line here. Going to go ahead and open those right now. So if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents on these or the other things we've been talking about today. Of course, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound towards the downtown area after the Prospect, Wyoming exit. There's an accident that's been moved off to the right. All lanes are open. 54 Patriot northbound at Hondo Pass, a disabled truck blocking the right shoulder. 54 southbound McCombs to Trans Mountain is slow, 8-minute delays, and a 13-minute delay on eastbound Montana Trowbridge to Zaragoza. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I sell custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters that are easy to install at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are custom-made for your windows, and I guarantee they'll fit. Don't hire a pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
Hey, Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us be El Paso's #1 volume dealer in new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram sales in 2022. Our goal is to ensure that everyone gets the best deals and exceptional trade-in offers so we can be #1 again in 2023.
Trade in and trade up for less during the Start Something New sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. For a limited time, get super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram trucks. Super low 1.9% APR on 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees and get $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, we have a huge selection of new Dodge Chargers and certified pre-owned vehicles with the best prices in town. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. Trade in and trade up for less at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Staples Print and Marketing is committed to quality and printing perfect every time. Now at Staples, get $10 off your document printing and marketing materials order of $50 or more. Offer ends 2/11. See staples.com/store/printing for details. Try Staples and see the difference.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in on however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of other commentary coming in there. And seriously, if you're trying to say guns just go off by themselves sometimes here, listen, there's 4 rules of firearm safety. I just got to say here, assume, there's 3, I treat it as 4 because I think more specificity is useful in this case. Treat a gun as if it is loaded. Never put your finger on the trigger until you are ready to fire. Always be aware of what your target is and what's behind it. And the one I add is never point a gun at something that you're not willing to destroy. So those things being followed, for the most part, pretty much would remove, 90% of it. Sure, there is a possibility of there being serious mechanical malfunctions, but no, guns do not just go off. That's a line that I've heard the most part by someone trying to justify negligent discharge on their part here because operation of it, because if you got something that just randomly goes off, it's possible that there could be a mechanical device designed that way. You're no longer talking about a gun, you're talking about a grenade that you don't know when the pin was pulled on, among other things. So anyway, let's go back to the phone lines here now. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line, full up at the moment, but in the meantime, just make sure you got it down, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeastern line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Things that affect El Paso, the Mexican-American culture affects El Paso, as does being a border community with all of Latin America and billions of Spanish-speaking people just south of us. Now, Andrew, there's a word in Spanish that perfectly describes people like Republican Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, this lying House Representative, George Santos, and, of course, Donald J. Trump. And that word is sinvergüenzas. Ever heard that word growing up here in El Paso and being educated here? Sinvergüenzas? You ever heard that word?
Yeah, I have heard that phrase, I think is what you're getting at there.
Do you know what it means?
Well, tell me what the point is getting to here, because I'm having a little bit problem connecting to our culture and to what's going on in D.C. and the machinations politically going on there.
Well, you were talking about that shooting of, that Alec Baldwin got involved. It's not exactly El Paso stuff either. Well, it means shameless. Did you learn how to speak Spanish growing up here in El Paso, Andrew?
I took some Spanish classes. It's not, I didn't really have many conversations with it here. But familiar enough. I know how to, the joke I say is find food, find the bathroom, and get in a fight anyway.
Well, that's too bad. El Paso School District should be graduating kids that are fully bilingual in English and Spanish. That would help all of those kids. Now, a lot of those kids already know how to speak Spanish, but they don't know formal Spanish and, and writing very well in it and so forth. Every kid in El Paso should come out bilingual. That's part of the classic education is being multilingual. So I think that's a big failing. And it would open so many more doors for those young people outside of El Paso. They'd have to be willing to move to El Paso. But, every city that has graduates, college graduates, has a lot of those kids move on to other opportunities because that's the way it is in a capitalist system. You look for the best job opportunities in wherever they may be, and they many times are not in your hometown. Well, it seems to me that the Republicans are fine with that kind of folks, It's fine with them. It's the ends justify the means in their thing. Be it even Trump bending over to take the help of America's mortal enemy, Putin, to win in 2016 presidential election, or developing and executing a 7-part plan to overturn the legitimate presidential elections, with the last resort being a violent attack on the Capitol. So Trump and his co-conspirators and supporters are sin vergüenzas.
Again, I'm not all surprised about your perspective on it here, but let me just say this. It's something else that we brought up to the actual kind of at least inciting point, I guess, of how we got into this conversation today of what's going on, of course, in the national legislature, Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, and again, George Santos here. I've often called this out, and it feels very appropriate in this case, of the idea of political expediency over anything else. Like, well, we got to do this right now. And there's a couple of factors going into it here. And if you want to say that because I talked about Alec Baldwin that this is on the table here, I would give you the at least bronze medal for the mental gymnastics here, but I'll at least address it in part here, that a couple of the factors that come into it, that even the Republican Party in New York has themselves, the local party that is, said that no, we are just not going to work with Santos at all. But I think the consideration is at least two-part, that yes, Santos was a critical part of getting the speaker in. If you don't think that backroom deals and favor making is at least a significant part of how DC works, I have several bridges to sell you. But then also there's the idea that it being a very competitive district, that it might flip red to blue if there were to be a removal and therefore reinstatement. Also, even if there was a removal from office and a reappointment here, that it would flip that seat, which is something that national Republicans are loath to do here. If you think that those are the most important things, well, you're entitled to that. But let me just say that the idea of political expediency, of only like, well, this is what we got to get done right now, and this is the only way we can achieve it, so we got to do it, that has not served us that well, as well, either in the legislature or as a country overall. So I'm not calling this the right set of actions here, but I'd be surprised if those in national leadership positions, particularly Speaker of the House, end up doing anything else, at least in the short term, without them getting any essentially other off-ramp. As we've often talked about, other pressure relief valve, I don't see that changing. And I mean, it's definitely not a good look. It's not something that I'm particularly happy about, because the more I learn about that situation, the more I have just WTFs continuing to come up. But I don't expect it to change anytime soon, is the, I guess, short Cliff Notes version of that here. So appreciate the point in the call. We got to end up taking that next break right now. We got more calls on the line. We got more discussion that we're going to be having. So if you want to get on the line, don't forget that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound towards the downtown area after the Prospect, Wyoming exit. There's an accident that's been moved off to the right. All lanes are open. 54 Patriot northbound at Hondo Pass, a disabled truck blocking the right shoulder. 54 southbound McCombs to Trans Mountain is slow, 8-minute delays, and a 13-minute delay on eastbound Montana Trowbridge to Zaragoza. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Attention, Bachelor Nation. He's back. The host of some of America's most dramatic TV moments returns with the most dramatic podcast ever with Chris Harrison. During 2 decades in reality TV, Chris saw it all. And now he's telling all.
It's going to be difficult at times. It'll be funny. We'll push the envelope. But I promise you this, we have a lot to talk about.
Listen to the most dramatic podcast ever with Chris Harrison on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Cybercrime is getting more sophisticated by the week, which is bad news for your business. Stay one step ahead of them with Good Hacker IT Solutions. You'll enjoy 24/7 computer and network monitoring with remote help desk services too. Connect unlimited computers and servers easily. Sign up for a subscription plan with no contract. You can cancel whenever. To get a quote, send a message at goodhackersolutions.com. That's goodhackersolutions.com. Defend your business from bad hackers with Good Hacker IT Solutions.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Want to know what I like best about high school sports? I love watching my son run on the field. I love seeing him smile when he high-fives his teammates. I love seeing his eyes light up when his team scores a goal. I love the fact that since he's been playing high school sports, he's making better decisions. And I love knowing that high school sports have never been safer. Why? Because coaches have more information than they've ever had. Training techniques are more sophisticated, and equipment has never been more advanced. Playing high school sports isn't just safe. It's still the best way to give your teenager a healthy head start in life. And that's something I really love.
This message about the value of high school sports is presented by the Texas University Interscholastic League and the Texas High School Athletic Directors Association.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
News on the hour and a half. traffic, and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Singer-songwriter David Crosby is dead at the age of 81. Crosby was a founding member of influential 60s rock bands The Byrds and Crosby, as well as Stills and Nash, which later became Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. His wife said in a statement to Variety that he died surrounded by family after battling a long illness. Crosby was elected to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice. Actor Alec Baldwin could have a tough legal road ahead following the decision from a New Mexico district attorney to charge the actor with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Attorney and host of The Weekend, Michael Brown, says Baldwin's previous statements could hurt him in court.
Everything that he said, including the denials of shooting the gun, when in fact we know that he shot the gun, that's going to be used in the case before the jury.
Brown also said the district attorney's office likely was cautious in its decision because Baldwin is a high-profile actor. Armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed will also be charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Wall Street is closing with stocks lower as fears grow over more rate hikes from the Federal Reserve. This comes as unemployment filings fell to the lowest level since last June. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones fell 252 points to 33,044. Ukrainian President Zelensky says Western-made tanks are crucial to his country defeating Russia's war. Lisa Taylor has more.
He told reporters the holdup is due to complicated reasons that includes requiring permission from the countries they're manufactured in. Zelensky added he's looking into other ways to get those tanks, like internal production. However, he noted that getting them urgently is important while lives are at stake. I'm Lisa Taylor.
Monica Lewinsky is marking 25 years since her sex scandal with former President Bill Clinton. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A Major League Soccer player is dead after a boating accident near the Miami Marine Stadium Basin. Florida Fish and Wildlife officials say the boat Anton Walks was operating and another vessel collided yesterday afternoon. The 25-year-old, who most recently played for Charlotte FC, was rushed to the hospital, but doctors could not save his life. A growing number of Texas universities are banning the use of TikTok on their computer networks and Wi-Fi servers. That's not sitting well with professors who use the social media site for research.
The ban on TikTok limits my ability to generate understandings of the ways in which this new, incredibly important platform affects day-to-day life.
Sam Woolley at UT Austin leads the school's propaganda research lab. He says banning TikTok from the school servers will not stop the flow of disinformation.
Banning TikTok does not mean propaganda and manipulation are going to go away on TikTok.
Texas is one of a growing number of states cracking down on the Chinese-owned company, banning it on government-owned devices. A new comic book explores Dave Grohl's Fairfax County, Virginia childhood. Sarah Bartlett has the story.
Tidal Wave Productions recently released Orbit, Dave Grohl, which looks at the Foo Fighter frontman's life from growing up in Springfield to his successful career. It's part of the independent production studios series on personalities who impact the world. They've previously released editions dedicated to David Bowie, John Lennon, Ozzy Osbourne, and Alice Cooper.
Actress Aubrey Plaza says she bombed her Saturday Night Live audition years ago. This as she's set to serve as the show's host this weekend. Appearing on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Plaza said she auditioned for the show way back in the day with 2 very odd original characters. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Green. That's green. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance flexes to fit your business needs, from quick repairs to adjustable coverages and even payment options. Progressive Commercial makes it easy to get what you need. Quote today in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Hey folks, Cash Blitz scratch games from the Texas Lottery are here for you right now, and you want to check them out because you could win top prizes from $5,000 all the way up to $1 million. You can enter for a chance to win a VIP trip to an iHeartRadio event or concert. If you're listening to us, you probably might enjoy that, but also win a trip to Austin to play the $10 million Cash Blitz Challenge and attend the iHeart Country Festival. Play today and be sure to visit TexasLottery.com for all the details.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all. iHeartRadio. Access to all of your favorite radio stations.
It's Ryan Seacrest. I go by the name of Charlamagne the God.
Hi, I'm Ellen K.
Bobby Bones here.
Hola, soy Enrique Santos. Access to all of the best free curated playlists.
My favorite music, best songs.
A little bit of everything.
Access to all of the great podcasts for every interest.
The Stuff You Should Know podcast.
The Daily Show podcast.
The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
And best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. If you want to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland going on in our larger region is kind of what we're talking about here today, or definitely important and impacting us here, they're in the right place as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in El Paso and talk about the things that affect us here. Of course, Talk El Paso brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Of course, find them at, Sunland Park and I-10. Look for their big sign there. A lot of great deals. You can often hear us on the airwaves out there. So again, Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Find them at Sunland Park at Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram.net. But visit them in person, see their great selection there. But let's go back to those phone lines here now as we're going to get into more of the discussion here. So right up on the line here right now, we do have Andrew on the west side for us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're just fine there. What's on your mind?
Yes, local issues, statewide issues, basically school safety.
Certainly, yeah. Again, one of the ones that has certainly been put forth by the governor here, and we've had more than a little bit of discussion on our airwaves about some of the things that have been being worked on in this area. So, and there's a lot of people that have a lot of very important, considerations, concerns, and things to say about it. So, yeah, it's exactly a minor topic.
Correct. One of the things I've always been a big proponent on, and I think we discussed this at length last year, is the school marshal program.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I definitely think more money needs to go into that. And, teachers, this is totally voluntary. Teachers don't have to be a part of it.
Right.
Any full-time employee that works in the district, and as long as the district is willing to participate in it, can be a member of that school safety program. And the training is relatively inexpensive. I mean, we have a big surplus. We ought to put some of that into our protecting our students.
I mean, yeah, we talked about this program previously. Some of the kind of cliff notes I remember of it it's more than just one of the, giving teachers guns programs, which I'm not saying I'm wholly opposed to that, but as I say, in almost any circumstance we're talking about firearms, just having the implement is nowhere near even beginning to be enough to truly have competency, understanding, and the skills required to be using it in a complicated environment. Because as much as, particularly when you're talking about training, the decision when not to use it is arguably more important in my mind than just how to use it. So the fact that they're coming with a lot more training and possibilities of it, certainly important. I will say, again, as we're still kind of percolating through seeing what bills will come to the forefront here, I haven't heard of any particular implications of like that being a part of those, though I will also freely admit I am not having immediate familiarity with the thousands of bills that have been filed so far. So it could be in there. Whether it comes to the forefront will be kind of the next question then.
Yes, well, like I said, it's there is quite a bit of training involved, and like I said, it's not that expensive, and it's better to have armed marshals in the schools, you know, so maybe it'll be just knowing about it. Maybe these people will be a deterrent. Maybe it'll be a deterrent to some of these people who want to shoot up a school.
I mean, yeah, the whole idea of not being an easy target certainly has a level of, it makes sense with it. Again, the part I guess I keep coming back to is just wanting to make sure that, I guess, if other things end up being concerned, I guess the way I would like to see it happen, if it were to happen in this legislative session, is on some of the other more substantive bills. Because I mean, again, with billions at stake here, there's a lot of room to make things work out here. I think school hardening is absolutely a conversation to be had. I'll refer back to, again, the couple of experience I've had going into that Sylvester Reyes Elementary here, not actually involved with the Canutillo Independent School District. All don't even actually live in that district, close-ish anyway. But going into that school, the way there was the level of control of access points was so radically different from, well, any school I attended anyway, as to make it probably a very good, maybe not the model, but following a model that should definitely be looked at. But I will say that then adding on maybe the potential of voluntary inclusion within school marshal things, because as this kind of dovetail what we were talking about with Estefania yesterday about her story that you can see the full web story on now, by the way, of the combination of, like say kindergarten and first grade classrooms, things being done based on, well, we got to get it done, so figure out how to do it anyway. The only circumstance I would not want to see is then teachers saying like, oh, okay, by the way, you're signing up for the school marshal program, and hey guys, we've solved our security issues. Like that would be the non-desirable outcome of the inclusion on it, I would say.
Understood. And that's why I say it should be voluntary.
Yeah, and that making it a very, so like I said, kind of like maybe tacking it on to a, otherwise substantive bill as opposed to trying to make it on its own here, because, I mean, honestly, even as much as you're saying, like, they're not that expensive, could be seen as like, oh, wait, this is the quick and dirty solution, guys. We got it taken care of. We did something. I mean, we all know how there can be that kind of spin and done with it when it comes to political talk, and how they're saying, oh, no, we totally achieved it, guys. And then you look at the details and, yeah, you're left wanting.
Agreed. And what I tell people, remember, only law-abiding citizens will obey the law. Criminals are not going to do it. Now, speaking of that, of law, New Mexico with its lax laws, what is it? Manslaughter in the state of Texas can get you 2 to 20 years. Involuntary manslaughter in New Mexico, up to 18 months?
Yeah, on this particular level of charge, there might be more maneuvering. Again, according to the district attorney there for the first district of New Mexico, there's going to be some deciding on the level of charge totally. So it's not, I think that's the immediate range. There could be some modifications done there, particularly given some of the other kind of secondary charges. So let's just call it TBD. But yeah, that's at least the basis point.
Yes, well, Alec Baldwin, being the arrogant narcissist that he is, he'll probably luck out and get probation from the state of New Mexico, or some sort of supervised release.
Potentially here. I did, of course, note in the news break at the top of the hour there that was a mentioning of what I had just talked about how some of his public statements may be metaphorically shooting himself in the foot there, pun kind of intended. But I will say that, I mean, this will probably be high-profile prosecution, and I mean, even what was being talked about there about this maybe being too timid of a moving forward because it is such a high-profile case. This will probably be one that gets a lot of attention, and I'm sure it'll come up here from time to time as we progress closer through and to trial.
Granted. Well, Andrew, I'll turn the mic over to you. I'll let somebody else talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Very well.
All right, with that, I think there's one more call on the line here right now. Let's go with, we got Kevin on the east side with us here right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you. I do not know what the answer is to this question I'm going to be bringing up.
Mm.
This is why I'm calling you and your listeners for some ideas.
Okay.
This has to do with the property tax.
Mm.
It seems that the property tax is going up just about every year. It's way off the charts compared to other states, some other states. And the way I look at it is when you buy a car, there's a tax there. And you pay it, and the people at the car dealership don't come back to you every year and say, oh, by the way, there's more tax on your car that you already purchased. The same thing with a plot of land, things like that. But this property tax is, it's an exception to it. And I think some people have gotten out of this by one lady I was reading about said, I'm not going to own a home or anything. I'm going to go on a cruise around the world and just keep cruising, paying any property tax, and the food is good, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lady I know who lives in New Mexico, and she bought a trailer and got a cheap piece of land to put it on, and there she is, and she's doing very well. Don't come after her and say, okay, well, your trailer, you're going to have to pay property tax on this every year. It just seems to me that this is not a good way of doing things as far as getting money from the people. One of the things that gets me is that when we have the propositions that are being voted on here in El Paso, especially for a new pool or a new recreation park or a concert hall or whatever it's going to be, I think, as a suggestion, that the people who are suggesting these things should put down and have it audited. This will raise your property tax on average so and so many dollars each year. And I think that would persuade a lot of people, I hope a lot of people, to vote no on some of these things that I consider just luxuries. These are not necessities. And I think the property tax would go down from there. But as far as an alternative to property tax itself, the only thing I can talk about in that regard, and I don't like it, I don't want it, so maybe I should not mention it, is income tax, state income tax. And I hope not. There's got to be a better way. I'm looking for your ideas, and I'm looking for the ideas of your audience on this, Andrew.
I thought that might be what you're winding up to there, because it's been mentioned before. I mean, other people have brought it up on this program here. So to your final point there about property tax, I would be nowhere near holding my breath on that happening. If anything, getting a property tax in Texas has gotten even further away from the realm of possibility. I mean, there have been laws passed. There have been further clamping down on it. So I don't see that particularly happening without.
I think you mean income tax, right?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I think you mean income tax.
Sorry, income tax. Yeah, you're right here. Income tax, because doing that on the income you make every year would be, it's gotten even more difficult to get to. And there would be, at least given the current political makeup of Texas, anyone they actually reasonably suggesting it with any kind of actual hope of it coming into place would be committing several forms of political suicide at once here. So maybe if there are radical changes to how the leadership and demographic, politically makeup of Texas happens, possibly, but we're getting into speculative future here. But because, income tax is practically a 4-letter word whenever it comes to the legislature and the government here in Texas. That being said, and I may have actually misspoke earlier when I was describing about increases happening in property taxes, because the finer point to be made is that assessments have absolutely been increasing, but the real then control of it comes into what the local taxing entities end up doing here. But you do have a further point there that, yeah, the impetus has been to see them increase. Case in point, kind of with the way that the city and the county in previous years have handled it. There was a little bit closer to it wasn't exactly a no new revenue tax rate here, because there was some slight increase. So if it was a decrease in the overall percentage of the tax rate coming out from the city this last time, the county for the last couple of years has focused on a no new revenue tax rate. And there are certain laws in Texas that effectuate that as well, including what the rollback tax rate is, that are certain essentially formulas and calculations that make it that whatever they set their tax rate of, it can't be so much more revenue percentage increase over last year. Otherwise, it goes to the voters. So that kind of serves as a de facto tax rates limit when it comes to the local governments here in Texas. But it's of course more complicated than that. So I mean, it even came up yesterday. Commenters saying that in some cases it may make more sense to build like major infrastructure and facilities like just across the state line as opposed to into Texas, because I mean, the sum total of them not having the income tax, and I do appreciate you correcting what I was saying there, the income tax not being a part of it means that infrastructure, physical buildings end up being the most expensive. So I understand what you're saying there, and that you're looking for answers here. I would be incredible. It will be a completely different day in Texas. Let me just put it that way. If a income tax ends up even being floated at all reasonably without immediate like pitchforks and torches being brought out. So I don't see that as being a potential solution anytime in the near future, but who knows, 10, 20 years from now, if things are substantially different, or maybe looking at if there comes out more evidence, particularly on the idea that a property tax alone is stymieing parts of Texas. I mean, one thing that Texas Governor Greg Abbott touted as part of his reinauguration is about Texas being, quote, the headquarters of headquarters, I think is the way he ended up putting it here, that Texas has, of all the states in the union, the most Fortune 500 companies headquartered here. And I mean, sure, there's a lot of advantages that come from that. From them, obviously, there's a reason they're wanting to do that. But also, again, major infrastructure, if you're looking to build things and that ends up being property taxes, may not be the most advantageous. But I don't see it happening. Again, it's just anytime soon is what I keep coming back to.
Yeah, I'd like to get some more ideas on this, because it's really unfair to people that have to pay. There are people that have exemptions, and I don't want to mess around with that. I'm sorry I brought it up.
Fair enough.
It's a mess. It's got to be straightened out here. I appreciate your time, Andrew.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
You too, Andrew. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the calls on the line here. And yeah, some of the questions that are coming in here, including about Eric von Holstein-Rathlow asking, didn't Abbott pass a law saying that does not allow an income tax? I don't think they can strictly prohibit it, but they're essentially tying the knots really tight on the idea of it, legally speaking. But I mean, knots tied can be untied. So in constitutional changes can have other constitutional changes made to them when it comes to the state of Texas. So sure, they may have said that essentially you cannot, but it's more about kind of what roadblocks have been put into it. I mean, at this point, I think we're talking about like Fort Knox style roadblocks. So not just roadblocks, but like vault doors. But you give someone else the combination. That's what I'm saying. It would take major sea changes in Texas politics for us to get anywhere near there. James Blackcliffe also asking about what about water fees increases of about I think 9% for only residents. Why does anyone stay in El Paso? I mean, those are the kind of questions that I think end up going into this idea of, would it ever be reevaluated? Maybe. If it turns out that it's not actually doing what you want it to, could be reevaluated, but we'll see. And a lot of other discussion on that, including RJ over on the YouTube saying never. I think that, again, that's a pretty overwhelming sentiment when it comes to Texas currently. But again, who knows what will come in the future. So if that's important to you, pays to pay attention and keep on top of this issue. So let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, more calls on the line, more comments that we'll be getting to as we've been delving into, and a whole lot more conversation about the things that affect us here in the borderland. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after that break. Again, phone lines open, full up at the moment, but keep it in mind, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder on Gateway West at Penndale. Police responding to an accident northbound Mesa at Montana Avenue, slowing in all directions there. Try Yandell or Kansas Street as your alternates. A crash at Wrestler northbound at Mesa Street, and slow traffic eastbound Montana McRae to Yarborough with 13-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Winning $1,000 incites all kinds of emotions.
Are you kidding? No way.
What to do with it is up to you.
We're going to Key West. That's it. What are you, nuts? We're going to Atlantic City.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Enter the nationwide keyword at ktsmradio.com for your chance to win. Brought to you by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, where buying a car is fun.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance can protect your small business with over 30 coverage options, an easy-to-use mobile app, personalized discounts, and more. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
Hey, Texas, there are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition, such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-838-4715 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-838-4715. That's 800-838-4715. What do you have to lose? Call 800-838-4715. Again, 800-838-4715.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to chime in, particularly at this point during the show. Phone lines are open if full, but if you want to squeeze in, again, that number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Want to at least dip on some of the comments here, including John Braslett saying sales tax pays immediate consumption. Everyone pays. I mean, that's essentially part of what the surplus we're looking at here, the 32. Okay, I'm going to go with the 50 billion number now because that's what's left over in the current amount that can go. I mean, it's not in the budget, but it could be used for other bills, funding priorities, etc. So, yeah, that's certainly a part of it. Okay, the surplus itself was what was it, approximately like 30 billion. It was announced at the start of the year, but then it kind of grew a little bit more as more analysis came in. So sales tax, yeah, and that has it hasn't really come up that much. I mean, like you can think of certain items locally, like the hotel occupancy tax, or things like that going to certain major projects. So that may be a way to do it. There's also some floating of the idea of legalizing marijuana. Yeah, I'm going to call that one kind of maybe not exactly the same realm as property taxes, or switching from property taxes, or including income tax. But even if we see anything happen nationally, I honestly, without serious political changes in Texas, I wouldn't necessarily see that happening unless there was like national legislation. And even then, I mean, Texas still has dry counties as far as I'm aware, nowhere near here, but there would even maybe see that being a phenomenon potentially locally. So maybe, but maybe not. Again, not necessarily worth holding your breath about, at least under this current administration. Future ones, who knows? See changes in politics, those kind of things. Anyway, let's get back on the line here. We do have Stephen on the east side with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, can you hear me?
Yep, hear you just fine there. What's on your mind?
So, yeah, I had a couple comments about the shooting with Alec Baldwin.
Mm-hmm.
It really does depend on the law of that state and the details on what involuntary manslaughter is, because the definition might be very close to criminal negligence. And I'm curious, actually, to see if the fact that he was an executive producer if that means that he's got a broader responsibility for the safety on the set, as opposed to just being an actor who was handed a gun by an armorer.
I'll say that's maybe kind of what's going on too. I mean, further quotes coming from Andrea Reeves, special prosecutor appointed by the district attorney in New Mexico to this case. She's quoted as saying, if any one of these three people, Alec Baldwin, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, or David Halls, one of the other further ones involved on kind of the onset handling and production, if any of these people had done their job, Helena Hutchins would be alive today. It's that simple. The evidence clearly shows a pattern of criminal disregard for safety on the Rust film set in New Mexico. There is no room for film sets that don't take our state's commitment to gun safety and public safety seriously. So, I mean, that's essentially, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer in this case, the fact that she was kind of a part of it. I mean, there were a lot of different reports floating around. Let's say that. I'll be more interested to see what evidence comes out in either the pretrial filing or in court on this. But the idea that there was a live round essentially in that firearm is a cascading set of failures to have ended up in that circumstance, knowing what I've read about both firearm safety, of course, and then also, how film production is supposed to go when it comes to having actual or even replica firearms used on set.
Yeah, and do you know why there's 2 counts?
So the 2 counts, I think, is, from both parts of it, I'm a little bit confused, I guess, also about whether it's about one for him and then one for the weapons specialist armor in this case here. But I think it might also be the part that it's kind of wrapped up into the, a negligent use of a firearm parts of it as well.
Okay. I wanted to agree with Raul. I do think it would be really great for students who are going to schools in El Paso to learn a second language. It really is beneficial to people. It is a broader education that is applicable in lots of places in your life. And it's especially applicable here in El Paso. And yeah, I agree that it is good when people do that. Of course, forcing people to do anything is not easy, but encouraging it, I think, could be done.
I mean, okay, I want to do a little bit more justice than maybe I did on the spot there with my education. I mean, I did do 2 years of Spanish in classrooms. I guess part of the way we kind of go about it in the U.S. is that we don't use learning a foreign language to further reinforce our English language skills, because it's not just about rote memorization and being able to regurgitate it back. It's also about being able to analyze the way that the language is used, the sentence structure, the participles, the way that sentence structure, all of that here should be a part of it. So I do have that gripe here, but I will say that the major reason I'm still doing essentially remedial Spanish at this point in my life is because I just don't really use it in my daily life. I mean, we're an English language station. I have never really been one to have gone over into Juarez or do anything like that, or have anyone that I have really that many of those conversations kind of with. So it's more of a feeling myself that I'm not quite as up on it here, because it's kind of like riding a bike, except I forgot how to ride the bike in this case. So I will say they do a decent job, even if there are maybe better ways it should be gone about. But I will say this, that at the very least, some of those Spanish language competency that does exist in general in the region, not necessarily putting this on, it's coming from the school districts, but the general ability of it is why there is a lot of that recruitment that tries to come out of our region, both that and the culture, frankly, because those skills and competency with those issues are in demand in other places that are having those kind of populations that may not be adequately served currently.
Yeah. Like I said, it's something you are right. If you don't use it, you lose it.
That's where I'm at.
So totally some truth to that. But yeah, like you said, there's a behind that. Like you said, there's participles, past participles, past tense, future tense. There's all kinds of things that go into it that's got a structure to it that you can apply to a lot of different things that's useful. And then, but as far to Raul is con todo lo demás. Estás equivocado en cualquier idioma. My other comment was about the guy asked about sales tax or property tax, and I think the reason why people have a bad taste in their mouth about property tax is because, like he kind of mentioned, it's like you pay income tax in states and federal, some states. You pay the sales tax when you buy it. All these taxes and fees, and then once you absolutely own something, do you really own that thing, your home, your car, whatever? If you fail to pay property tax, they can just take it away. So there's something that I think bothers people about that you don't really ever own anything if you just can have it taken away by the government. So I understand that. At the same time, I agree that I don't think I want to. I'd rather have property tax than income tax. But maybe the way to go is sales tax, because at least that means that you're participating in the economy, or you have to choose to buy something before you get taxed, as opposed to getting taxed on your house that you've owned forever.
I will say that, that seems to be, at least philosophically speaking, a little bit closer to maybe what this current administration and leadership within the state is looking at. So I don't think that it'll basically be saying like, oh, by the way, we're jacking up the sales taxes, because they probably won't like the look of that either. But I guess that might be kind of going to what Kevin was asking about, the way to go forward to see some relief about that, because I think essentially the idea of ethos switching from you own it, but do you because you have to keep paying on it, or towards the idea of, you're deciding to do something outside of your home and therefore paying more on it, excise taxes in general, whether it be sales, fuel surcharges, toll roads. I mean, toll roads aren't exactly popular, but that along those lines of ideas of you're doing something, therefore, etc., to be provided, the services that come along with it, makes more level of a sense. Don't know exactly how palatable like jacking up that is in order to remove property tax would be, but at the very least, it seems to be kind of a direction being moved in.
Yeah, lower the property tax, raise the sales tax a little bit to compensate. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe not exactly the way Abbott has been putting it here, so we'll see how those conversations come out of, again, the ongoing legislative session, but stranger things have happened, I guess.
All right, have a good evening.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point and call. Do appreciate it. All right. And with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the calls, more of the comments, more of the discussion of these things here, including some more things being brought up about education or how it should be handled here. So taking that next break, again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 news update. The fugitive connected to the 2014 disappearance and abduction of 43 Mexican college students was arrested at a local port of entry. Alejandro Tescanero Mejia of Guerrero, Mexico, was captured on December 14th, climbing over the border barrier near the Santa Teresa port of entry. Immigration officials arrested the 41-year-old and turned him over to ICE. He remained detained at the El Paso Processing Center until his removal yesterday. In 2014, 43 students from a rural teaching college in Guerrero, Mexico, went missing when traveling by bus. Tescanero Mejia was one of several individuals wanted in connection to the case. Actor and producer Alec Baldwin, who fatally shot a cinematographer on the set of the movie Rust in New Mexico, will be charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. That was the decision today by prosecutors in Santa Fe. They said that the weapons specialist on the movie set, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who supervised the weapons, will also face the same charges. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound is slow through downtown from Dallas to Trowbridge with 8-minute delays. On the spur eastbound from the Gateway to the Loop, it's a 5-minute delay. Avoid the intersection of North Mesa Street and Montana Avenue, slowing there in all directions from a crash. And an accident eastbound Pelicano at Bob Hope Drive. Try Pullman or Vista del Sol instead. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. It will be a cold one again for tonight and for your Friday morning. A little gustier for tomorrow as well. West winds 25 to 35 miles per hour, high around 60 on Friday. Then the numbers go cooler to colder again for the weekend. Highs lower 50s on our Saturday, down into the upper 20s for your Sunday morning with mid 50s Sunday afternoon. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us be El Paso's #1 volume dealer in new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram sales in 2022. Our goal is to ensure that everyone gets the best deals and exceptional trade-in offers so we can be #1 again in 2023.
Trade in and trade up for less during the Start Something New sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. For a limited time, get super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram trucks. Super low 1.9% APR on 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees and get $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, we have a huge selection of new Dodge Chargers and certified pre-owned vehicles with the best prices in town. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. Trade in and trade up for less at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Struggling with CPAP? Now there's Inspire, the only FDA-approved obstructive sleep apnea treatment that works inside the body to treat the root cause of sleep apnea with just the click of a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Visit InspireSleep.com to learn more.
Save now on appliances and more at the Truckload event at Lowe's. Get an additional 10% off all in-store clearance appliances and take home what you buy same day. Shop the Truckload event today. Exclusions apply while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details. Valid 1/5 through 2/8. This report is sponsored by Lowe's.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over on those parts here, including dropping those likes and reacts. Do have Amber Banda, James Radcliffe, Ion Grimm, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Ed Clore, Jerry Hart, Bernadette Bandicole, and at least one other. I don't know why it doesn't always show me all of them. Oh, Ida Beza Gardner, if I didn't say that one already here, which don't think I did, so there you go. And people chiming in, including, of course, from the YouTube. Don't worry, I'm not forgetting y'all out there, including RJ's very stringent never when it comes to the idea of having an addition to a property tax and income tax here. But it's an interesting discussion to be had, the idea of, okay, what will taxes look like? Because, of course, the governor has said that doing a big tax cut will be a major feature of it here. But also, I mean, anytime you got revenue and money to spend coming in with it, even governmentally, there tends to be okay, how can we make this work better or more? So, Bernadette Bandicole, better late than never, appreciate it. And so if you want to chime in that way, you can certainly do your comments over on the YouTube, but then also you can call in to have the phone line open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Definitely getting to a couple more of this here. And if you're saying that you're not allowed to talk about this because it's not reasonable, you don't think it'll happen in your analysis, and yet it's actually coming up, that's kind of where the definition of trolling ends up coming in. The idea that, oh, no, I don't think it's reasonable for you to talk about that, or assuming everyone around you is an a-hole is kind of what we're getting at there. So I think we're going to end up doing a 3 strikes and you're out system here. Again, we haven't necessarily banned anyone from the phone line here, but if you're going to be not actually wanting to talk about things as opposed to beating people up about your ideals there in our comments here, that's never particularly tolerated, because it doesn't go to our idea of having discussion about the things that affect us here in El Paso. So if you're bringing forth your sincerely held beliefs and ideas and want to talk about the merits them and discuss them, more than welcome to. But if you're just wanting to say, nope, you're wrong and I hate you, okay, we're definitely not going to be doing that. Anyway, let's get to at least a couple more calls here on the line. We do have Robert over in Chaparral on the line with us here right now. Robert, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. What's on your mind?
Hey, I wanted to make mention. It came up about the legislatures, and this week, of course, if you don't mind, many of the legislatures are all meeting this week and everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. So, I meant to get a little bit more into what the state of the state brought up, what New Mexico is. But, I mean, yeah, the New Mexico legislature doing one of its sessions, very different way out on the different formulation of how it works here. It's not this kind of mad dash. They do more regular meetings, but yeah, they definitely got some interesting priorities getting explored right now.
Exactly. A lot of those going on. And here in New Mexico, of course, they're meeting at what's called the Roundhouse, of course, the capital in Santa Fe. I wanted one of those things that they're bringing up is we found out they're going to be sponsoring a district captain with the Convention of States, so we're putting in our resolution in New Mexico states. In fact, there's about 10, at least 10, around 10 different states where we're a senator, a house, are bringing forth the resolution for Convention of States.
Okay.
Across, like, such as Oregon, Washington, I guess, Idaho, Pennsylvania, Montana, and then, of course, New Mexico. It's already been approved a while back in New Mexico. Not New Mexico. I mean Texas. Actually, New Mexico. It was actually approved in New Mexico in the House about 2016, 2015, I think.
Okay.
It was actually approved in the House, but it had to go. That was a number of years ago, so they're having to run it through both houses. And like I said,
Sure.
Texas, it's already been approved in both houses. But I wanted to, on the resolution, what we're asking, what's going to be putting forth in the resolution is that if I can read that right quick, the legislature of New Mexico hereby applies to Congress under the provisions of Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States for the calling of a convention of the states limited to proposing amendments to the Constitution of the United States. Again, limited to proposing amendments. It's not a constitutional convention. It's a convention of states, And it's to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, and we know that's big. 2 is to limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and 3 is to limit the terms of office for its officials and for members of Congress. And furthermore, it says, be it further resolved that the New Mexico Secretary of State is hereby directed to transmit copies of this application to the President and the Secretary of the United States Senate and to the Speaker and Clerk of the United States House of Representatives. And be it further resolved that this application constitutes a continuing application in accordance with Article 5. So it'll be I won't go into all that, the rest of that. So it's going to be a continuing resolution, and we're seeing things happen. In fact, last year in 22, 4 states, which included Wisconsin, Nebraska, West Virginia, and South Carolina, both their houses approved the resolution. And just a little thought on it. The resolution or approving the amendments or being talked about towards the amendments, it could require members of Congress to live under basically the same laws that they pass for the rest of us, and limit Supreme Court justices, set term limits for federal bureaucracies, and imposing different regulations, and are coming against all those regulations that are imposed, and of course returning power back to the states. And so again, the legislatures across the states, at least 10 of them, and we've gotten 19 approved so far. There's going to need to be a total of 34 states that need to approve a convention of states, and then at a convention of states to approve the amendments, 38 states need to approve the amendments. So that's actually a big bar. And Article 5 is, of course, the article where Congress goes about approving amendments, which we have from the 27, but not one of those 27 amendments has yet been brought about by a state convention. So we're pursuing that, and we're going to see how we do this year.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot will be going into this. I mean, both legislative sessions. I want to call the Texas one maybe a little bit more intense, but the fact that New Mexico meets more regularly makes it it can end up being a little bit more focused. So that'll be one to watch then. I wasn't fully aware of this one coming forth with it. I know that some of the further conversations about it. So, okay, I don't have a lot of perspective on how a convention of states really moves forward because, I mean, the latest amendment did happen in my lifetime, but I was not very politically aware when I was, what was it, like 4? So I'm not going to say that I have a good perspective on how that progressed here, but I want to say that specificity or lack thereof may be an issue with it. So seeing how that once we get to, I mean, you mentioned, of course, the ones that you have under the resolution, and it being continuing resolution would be important for that to make it so that it's not something that, well, it didn't work this time, we got to do it again another time. But yeah, getting those thresholds, it's difficult by design, to my understanding and my reading of the Constitution, because being able to do it kind of on a whim, change not even just laws, but foundational issues of the way this country works was not something that meant to be taken lightly or to be done necessarily quickly. Though I think it is worth noting that at least in some of the more recent amendments to the national constitution is what we're talking about here. Want to say either when it comes to the actual, voting ages, or even more the most recent one about pay raises, that the actual process of getting those from like start to finish in the modern sense anyway, because technically I think the pay raises one originated in like the 1700s, like very like
200 years for
yeah
that amendment.
So it took a while for it to percolate through, but the like actual process of getting like, oh hey, let's actually get this done now, that took a couple to maybe 3 years by most reckonings that I've read on it. So it's not impossible, though hasn't really happened in the most modern era.
Yeah, no. Like I said, that one took a while and everything. These others are, it's and it's made that way. And George Mason, the founders during that Constitutional Convention of 1787. I mean, they proposed how to do the amendments, and George Mason said, they knew they wouldn't put it past the U.S. Congress for them to be power hungry themselves. They knew their human weaknesses, huh?
Oh, sure.
And so he proposed that, and they were going to leave it at that Congress would propose amendments. But he said, hold on here. We're not going to be so naive to think that the U.S. Congress isn't going to put term to limit themselves. And so that's why they proposed the Article 5, the second part of Article 5, to have a convention of states, again, not a constitutional convention, but a convention of states to propose amendments, because they knew that the U.S. Congress would not do it themselves.
I mean, yeah, separation of powers, the federalist system, all of these things that were a part of the ability to even see the constitutional change from the Articles of Confederation. A lot of it went into it. So that'll be fascinating one to keep our eye on. Thanks for the update on that and what y'all are working on there particularly.
You bet. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Andrew,
sure thing.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the part of the call.
Bye-bye.
You have a good one there.
You bet.
All right. I think we have time for one more quick call on the line here before we have to end up being at the end of the show here. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
I was wanting to talk about conservative kookyism going on in the Congress. Well, I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about what I just heard on your guests or your callers about the aspect of Texas looking at a state income tax. And let me tell you something, RJ, it's going to happen, because let me tell you something. Your governor, Abbott Costello, went out there bragging to everybody, hey, California, come out here. We're capitalists. We love you. And blah, blah, blah. There's no state income tax and stuff. Now, if you El Pasoans out there and the rest of you Texans want to start paying 50% property taxes against your house, go ahead. And that ain't going to work. And you're going to wind up with income tax. Believe it. It's going to happen. That's what I want to say.
I will admit that your voice was in the back of my head as that was being brought up here, as you have previously posited that idea with it. And I mean, okay, I totally don't see income tax being proposed in the foreseeable future. Again, it would be completely a different situation, a completely different day in Texas, the best way I can think to describe it here. And honestly, I mean, there have been more statements, I would say, in support of even eliminating the property taxes and going almost entirely to excise taxes. I would see that as being maybe more politically possible in Texas at this moment, even if not necessarily actually going to happen.
What I would say, listen, you guys, when I say you guys, your governor went out there and bragging about how wonderful it was in Texas. You got an extra 10 million people. Well, those 10 million people need services. They need roads. They need sewer service. They need subways. They need whatever the heck it is. Now, if you Texans out there want to do this without state income tax and keep having your property taxes increased to the nth degree, well, that's on you. Now, let me say one other thing. Now, if this does happen, meaning state income tax, which is going to happen, it's going to happen. By the gods of old, it's going to happen. Now, obviously, you're going to have to adjust. Say, okay, state income tax, reduce your guys, meaning you Texan folks out there, your property taxes appropriately. But it is going to happen. You cannot sustain holding your services, the costs and everything involved in a state operation by just beating up on you people with your property taxes and stupid sales taxes. That's all I want to say.
Fair enough. Again, I think there are some more realities or not, but again, it's something to keep our eye on. I think that sales tax will probably be a focus, or other excise taxes like it, probably more of a focus of this ongoing and continuing legislative session, but only time will tell. But so again, stranger things have happened.
All right, well, keep me on, will you? Thanks a lot.
All right, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate with that. We got to take that last break right now. Coming out of this, we got coming up for you on the show here, and of course, prepare for Friday. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this quick break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound through the downtown exits, Wyoming, over to Viscount. It's a 14-minute delay. 54 southbound, McCombs to Trans Mountain is a 5-minute backup. On the Spur Liberty Expressway eastbound from the Gateway over to the Loop, a 7-minute delay. And Montana Avenue is slow eastbound from McRae to Zaragoza with 14-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things, because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
Cybercrime is getting more sophisticated by the week, which is bad news for your business. Stay one step ahead of them with Good Hacker IT Solutions. You'll enjoy 24/7 computer and network monitoring with remote help desk services too. Connect unlimited computers and servers easily. Sign up for a subscription plan with no contract. You can cancel whenever. To get a quote, send a message at goodhackersolutions.com. That's goodhackersolutions.com. Defend your business from bad hackers with Good Hacker IT Solutions.
Hey, Texas! This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions, or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-989-8906 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-989-8906. That's 800-989-8906. What do you have to lose? Call 800-989-8906. Again, 800-989-8906.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We are super out of time for the show here today. I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts we got working on for you. Of course, the Texas legislature and probably the New Mexico legislature are going to continue to be a bit of focuses for us here, but we got other subjects we'll also be exploring, including what some of those priorities are, but then also, I've requests for gun conversations about some of those laws in Texas that have come into effect, as well as what has also been being put forth with financial stuff. So a lot more we'll get to here, but I want to leave it today as, of course, there has been the as we've been on here, the news coming out about the death of David Crosby. So we're going to just play it out with, of course, one of his very famous tracks here, Passing of a Legend in a way. So we'll leave it with that for you for today. Thank everyone who did tune in, call and comment, participate in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Free for all Friday. Talk to y'all then.
It's getting to the point where I'm no fun anymore.
The I-10 eastbound will
Traffic
slow
all
you
day.
down downtown from
News Radio
Campbell Street to
690.
Hawkins with 11-minute delays. Slow traffic eastbound on the spur from the Gateway to the Loop with 15-minute delays. Slow traffic Montana Avenue eastbound from McRae out
News
to
on the hour
Zaragoza
and a
with a
half.
13-minute
Traffic
delay.
and weather
And
all
going the
day.
other direction,
News Radio
Montana Avenue
690
westbound after
is
Rich Bean outside the
KTSM
Loop. There's a
El
crash there.
Paso,
Perry
the
Edwards, El
iHeart Radio
Paso traffic.
station.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is confident the U.S. won't default on its debt.
Periodically, the debt ceiling has to be lifted, and it's always a rather contentious effort.
His comments come as the U.S. hit its debt ceiling today, prompting the Treasury Department to suspend new investments in some federal retiree funds. Alec Baldwin's lawyer says the actor had no reason to believe there was a live bullet in the prop gun that killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the film Rust. Baldwin was charged today in New Mexico with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter for Hutchins' death. Attorney Luke Nikas said his client had no reason to think live rounds were anywhere on the movie set. Singer-songwriter David Crosby is dead at the age of 81. Crosby was a